Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to my podcast. As always, if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and Libertarian Institute. So I wanted to take a break from the news cycle for a minute and make this episode. And this is one where normally when I do these kinds of episodes, these sort of like read-along episodes, it's normally on pieces that I disagree with. But this is one where I do absolutely agree with the piece, and I would like to elaborate a little bit on it in the kind of the vein of my own little personal project of trying to find all of the politically homeless people and kind of try to bring them into the libertarian tent, because this is something that I think is going to become more and more exacerbated the closer we get to 2020. And that is the idea of people basically being shoved out of the two major parties because both sides seem to be, I don't know, on this bizarre death wish to throw themselves off the cliff. And it seems like there's going to be increasingly more and more people in the center, or at least not to the extremes that each party is trying to go to, who are either just tuning out or just exhausted by politics or just are politically homeless now because you can't get down with where your party is going on either side. And the weird thing is that both parties seem to be embracing and encouraging this behavior of shoving people out, and I don't understand from like an actual winning an election perspective how the hell that's supposed to work out for them. But this seems to be the path that both parties are on. Like, obviously the GOP has gone full Trump, and the Democrats, I don't know what the hell they're trying to do, but if you don't believe me about people being even like remotely centrist, basically being kicked out of the party, go read a John Delaney tweet and then read the replies underneath the tweet. Like, it's wild. Like, I don't even understand what the fuck these people are doing or how they think that this is going to benefit them in any way. But like I said, this has been kind of my own little personal project of trying to maybe craft a way for libertarians to reach out to these people and at least present us as a third option, that you don't have to go with the duopoly. Like, you can turn your back on them because they're turning their back on you. And if you are somebody who still wants to participate in politics and still is of the civic-minded sort of person that feels that you do need to vote every 4 years for a president, and there are a lot of people that still feel that way. There's a lot of people that still feel like you can't not vote, to maybe try to give them this option of us. And not to say that libertarians are perfect, but at least there are some areas where I feel like libertarianism, even if you're just talking about the Libertarian Party writ large or just the liberty movement in general, we are a lot better at certain things than the other two parties are right now, just because we're used to doing certain things that the other parties aren't really used to doing. And oddly enough, I think our weaknesses are going to end up being our strengths in the end. And it's very weird. It's a very weird place politically for libertarians to be. But after all that introduction, I'm going to be going through Bridget Phetasy piece that she did for Spectator. And the title of it is The Battle Cry of the Politically Homeless. Subtitle: Anyone moderate with a brain and anything to lose has largely gone silent. And, I mean, she's correct. And obviously we're going to go through it as we go through the piece. But as Bridget puts it, they're the exhausted majority. And I think that is a really good descriptor, along with politically homeless, because like I said, there's a lot of people who are just tired. Like, even some days this is exhausting for me to try to keep up with this stuff. And this is what I do. Like, I can't imagine being like a casual spectator and trying to pop into politics right now and just being like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? Like, what is going on? So I think the exhausted majority is a very good description of what is going on in the center. And like Bridget points out, these people are silent. And so it's very difficult to kind of gauge, like, especially when you go online, like you see the polarization, you see the people, you see the arguments, you see the insanity, and that's representative of two very different poles, but those are the poles that are sucking all of the air out of the room. And there's a whole bunch of people in the middle who don't feel like they can participate in this process because they're afraid of getting eaten alive. And it's not a completely unfounded fear. Like, it's crazy out there right now. Like, it's to even say anything like remotely centrist, you get called every fucking name in the book. And it's just like, I don't know. It's so crazy to me to look at like the online bubble and then look at like real life and try to like reconcile the two and try to understand what the hell is going to happen next year. Because like I said, I have no clue. I cannot predict this. Like I'm 96% sure Trump will win, more than likely, just based on historical sort of data and realizing that usually one-term presidents don't often happen and there's a reason for that. And I don't see anybody coming out of the Democrat side that is going to be able to challenge him in a way that I think will be substantial enough that there will be like a huge difference between the two. So we shall see. But like I said, it's so hard to call because, again, there's this whole swath of people in the middle who none of us really know where they're at because they're afraid to even say anything. And I want to try to give these people a home and kind of a safe space where they can be and say what they want to say and kind of express their opinion. And yeah, that's kind of my hope. So let's go ahead and get into the piece. Like millions of other Americans, I'm exhausted, but I'm not tired from hashtag resisting or tired from screaming at a MAGA rally. I'm tired of the toxic tribalism infecting the very foundations of our democracy, straining our relationships and poisoning our view of our fellow humans. I'm tired of everyone being outraged, getting worked up over the latest news cycle only to forget about it 2 hours later. Tired of being afraid to voice my own opinions, of knowing how saying the wrong thing at a barbecue while someone is filming on their iPhone could result in a nationwide clarion call for my head on a pike. I'm tired of rage mobs and cancellations. 2016 was the breaking point, or at least a watershed moment, when the vilification of diverse opinion exploded. Trump versus Hillary forced everything into a binary, and suddenly bipartisanship and moderation became radical positions to take. Now, obviously, Bridget is right when she says all this, but a point I want to make, especially about like 2016 and going forward, is that the weird kind of fallout from the Trump versus Hillary thing is, while it did like strengthen the binary as it stands right now, the duopoly, the backlash to that is increasingly becoming people turning their back on that because both sides have lost their goddamn fucking minds now. So it's a weird, like I said, it's a very weird place to be in right now. And oddly enough, and I kind of talked about this when I did my interview with Alex Merced, is that libertarians have somehow found ourselves in the very weird position of actually kind of being in the center of the political horseshoe now, which is not where we're normally at. And it's kind of a weird feeling, and it's cool in a way, but it's also like kind of an adjustment period of knowing that somehow we are the sane ones now. And that's another thing that I want to try to, as far as like doing outreach, if you are somebody who does that kind of thing, of kind of presenting us as like, hey, we're actually like not the crazy ones anymore. Like the duopoly has lost their damn minds, and somehow we are now the sane, rational adults in the room. And like I said, I'm not sure how this happened, but here we are. And it's weird. But I think that there is a place for us to kind of reach out to these people who are either just tired of the insanity or just have been canceled for one reason or another, or have just been shoved out of their former political party or feel like their party has left them, that we can be that third option, and that there can be a third option. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to pick either team red or team blue. Like, you can pick team gold, or you can pick team green, or you can pick team Democratic Socialist, or you can pick whatever you want, but preferably pick us. I like us best. But moving back to the piece. Now, you aren't just voting out of habit or, God forbid, voting for your own interest. Every vote is considered a statement on your personal identity and worth. Your value, who you are, what kind of world you want, whether or not you're a good person or an evil person, it all boils down to which lever you pull. Damn your reasons. Vote for the right person, or else you're a fascist or a racist or a globalist or a communist. Whoo, is that true? And you could see it back last year in the 2018, the midterms. All of a sudden, if you didn't vote for the right team, then you were an awful, awful, awful person. And to kind of leave off on my views on voting, because I have my reasons for not voting, and it's not that I will never vote again in the future, but this kind of environment does not lend itself to people being happy and feeling good about voting. Like, if you can't vote for the person that you want, like that you feel like best aligns with your values, or you do it, but you feel like you have to lie about it because you don't want to take a bunch of shit for it, that's really, really fucked up, honestly. That's a very bad place to be in. And of course, this is always a problem that those of us who try to encourage people to vote third party always have to surmount, is you have this fear of, if I don't vote for one of the two main choices, that I will enable the other person to win, or that you're wasting your vote. And I did a whole episode on that concept and how it just infuriates me, the idea of telling somebody that they wasted their vote because they voted for the person that they wanted to vote for. Like, that just, oh my God, no. But it is a hurdle that we as libertarians, or any third party, is going to have to deal with going into the 2020 election, because it's going to be even more so next year. There's that fear, that beating people over the head, that if you don't vote for person A, then person B is going to win because you didn't do it right, or you threw away your vote, or you vote for a third party and you're going to enable Trump to win, or whatever Democrat to win. It's something that we need to think about and start coming up with, like, constructive ways of getting people over that hump, because there's always kind of that lag in polling, like where somebody will be polling fine before election day, but then those numbers just drop, because once somebody gets in the voting booth, and all of a sudden all those fears start creeping into their head, and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I have to pick one of these two people, I can't vote third party. So that is something that I think that we need to work on kind of overcoming, and also for the politically homeless, to give them that option and be like, it's okay. Like, if you like our candidate, you can vote for our candidate. It's not going to be the end of the damn world. And for what it's worth, it's what I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. If people don't vote for third-party candidates, then a third-party candidate is never going to have a decent shot. Like, it comes down to people voting. Like, if you can justify it all day and say, well, I wanted to vote for this person, but, well, if you don't, then, I mean, you can't bitch about the duopoly and then still participate. Like, that makes no sense. Like, if you hate it, if you want to get rid of it, then you have to take the step to vote for third-party candidates. That's the only way that's going to work. So that's something that I think we should all think about and try to come up with ways to make people feel like more comfortable voting for third-party candidates, knowing that that is going to be such an uphill battle next year. Like, I'm not looking forward to it. There will probably be lots of angry episodes about it. But moving back to the piece. Politically disinterested citizens like me have increasingly been pulled off the sidelines and into this incredibly divisive political climate, unwilling combatants in a battle fought against fiercely partisan tribes. Many are being bullied into involving themselves in the process because intolerance and shaming have become features of the American life. Thanks in no small part to social media, the simple act of expressing your opinion, or even going so far to ask questions, has begun to negatively affect lives and destroy people. Now, I can't say that that's wrong, because, I mean, that does happen on social media. What I would like to present to people who are tired of that very divisive black-white kind of argumentation and thinking is that, at least in libertarian circles, there is room for disagreement. Like, it's not a monolith. People think that we kind of march in lockstep when we really don't, especially on topics like abortion, like immigration, like the big topics. Like, there are fair amounts of disagreement within the movement, and that's okay. That's fine. And I think that we handle that better than the other two parties right now, because that's always been there with us. Like, there's always been a diversity of thought and opinions on various topics amongst people who all identify themselves as libertarians. And there's never been like this demand for ideological like lockstep. I mean, I know some people do the purity test. I think the purity test is fucking stupid. Stop it, people. It's okay. Employ the 80-20 rule, okay? If you can agree with somebody on 80% of the stuff and 20% you don't agree with, it's okay. Like, we can all go together and make it through, and then maybe once we get like the big things dealt with, maybe then we can start getting granular on certain things. But this idea, especially with both the Democratic and Republican Party, it's like there is a set of ideals that you have to ascribe to, and if you do not, then you're not allowed in the club anymore. And it's just becoming this very, very tight, rigid thing, and it's kind of scary to watch, to be completely honest, because both sides are authoritarian as hell. And neither one, like, no matter who wins in 2020, it is not going to be a fun time for libertarians. It's going to be infuriating. We're going to hate it. So we can all just mentally prepare for that. But at least we can give people a home where it's okay to have certain disagreements. And it's okay. And we can still be friends afterwards, and we don't have to cancel each other, and we don't have to kick anybody out, or just a space for more constructive dialogue than what is currently available in either one of the two major parties. Moving on. You may have once fancied yourself a good progressive while also having the opinion that there are only two genders. Or you may describe yourself as a staunch conservative, but tend to think racial targeting by police is a problem. Or the cardinal sin. You may have decided to vote for a candidate you felt better represented your concerns. Upon voicing on social media what you think are fairly normal, moderate views, you find out something that you didn't know. You are the enemy. And not just the enemy, you're evil. Now, I've discussed this a couple of times, especially when talking about Jonathan Rauch's book, Kindly Inquisitors. And that is this idea that is becoming increasingly, especially on the left, but also on the right, this idea that if you do not agree with somebody, that means you are either stupid or evil. It's a very fundamentalist thought, and it's very different from the more incremental sort of trying to explain to somebody why they're wrong or why you happen to think they're wrong. It's just automatically dismissing somebody out of hand as you're just an awful garbage trash person, and I'm not even going to talk to you. Like, I'm not even going to try to convince you of why I think you're wrong. I'm just going to say, you're wrong, you suck, you're canceled, bye. And it's this very destructive mindset that, again, is very exclusionatory. It pushes people away because there's no room for any kind of discussion or any kind of ideological differences in either one of the two major parties right now. And because we've always had that, I think that we're just, and it's always been portrayed as something of a weakness, like, oh, it's the libertarians, they can't agree on anything, they can't get their shit together. It's like, you know what? That might actually end up being our saving grace, is that we don't all agree on stuff. And it's okay. And it's fine. And sometimes we argue with each other, and sometimes we're loud and messy, and it's fine. We're still friends at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be this awful, horrible, just soul-sucking sort of thing. And you know what? Maybe that'll be the thing that draws people to us and gives people kind of a little more of a softer landing place, because it's not like there's very, very, very few things that you have to be like hardcore on before you can call yourself a libertarian. And a lot of them are not social issues at all. It's really more basic core, like belief in private property and belief in self-ownership and belief in self-determination. It's not, do you think that there are two genders, or are you pro-life or pro-choice, or are you for open borders or closed borders, or what's your immigration policy, or what do you think about transgender people or gay people, or baking cakes or officiating weddings or anything like that. It's really much more basic core things that I think most people can get on board with. And as long as you can get on board with that, all of the other stuff is kind of ephemera. Like there's places where people agree, there's places where people disagree, there's people that are more socially conservative, there's more people that are socially liberal within the libertarian movement, that there's kind of space for everybody in there, in the tent, as long as you can kind of get down with the really basic stuff. And I think that that is a good way to try to reach out to the politically homeless, to say, like, look, it's okay. You can come here, you can disagree, and it might even get heated. Like, I don't know if you guys ever stopped to listen to the Thaddeus Russell, Dave Smith, Nick Gillespie interview that they did. It's on Unregistered, it's on Thaddeus's. There are parts in that where it gets pretty damn heated, but at the end, like, everybody's still friends. Like, it's fine. Like, everybody's still pretty cool with each other. So I think that's a way to try to present kind of our messiness as at least a welcome messiness, as opposed to the rigid ideological lockstep that you're expected to adhere to if you are going to be Republican or Democrat in 2019. Moving back to the piece. After 2016's chaotic impact on the culture took hold, each mere opinion or vote became life or death in the fight for the survival of civilization, and you were either for civilization or against it. The trouble is, everyone believes they're on the right side of history and justifies abhorrent behavior in service of their beliefs. Families are divided. Extremes have become more extreme and shades of gray are shunned. Expressions of nuance are mocked. Anyone moderate with a brain and has anything to lose has largely gone silent. I get it too. I understand why the silent majority is uneasy. They're not wanting to worry that sharing their opinion on Facebook could cost them their livelihood. Most people are just trying to raise their families and pay their bills and pine for the days when they only had to think about politics every few years. Now, millions of independent thinkers, recently polled at almost 70% of the American population and labeled the exhausted majority, are harboring intense feelings of political homelessness and ideological isolation. Guys, 70%. 70%. That can be our 70%. Those can be our people. If we just reach out to them and let them know that, like, it's okay. We're not so weird. Well, we are, but it's okay. And you can be weird here too. It's fine. Come visit. We have edibles and we share and we have booze and sometimes we have loud disagreements, but that's okay too. Because at the end of the day, it's all fine. It's going to be fine. But another thing I want to point out, especially in regards to trying to reach out to people who, by and large, want to be left alone, well, we're it. Libertarians just want to take over the world and leave you alone. And I think that's another good way to do outreach, is to try to explain to people that all we want is pretty much less of everything. Just less government interference, less social interference, less people involving themselves into your life and telling you what you should and should not be doing, and more freedom just to allow you to live your life the way you want and to just basically not be bothered by all this bullshit on a regular basis. I think that's a pretty good pitch. And ultimately, it is what we want. Like, we just want less of everything intruding into your life and more of you making decisions on however it is that you want to live. And so long as you're not harming anybody, you're good. You're fine. You can do whatever it is you want to do. You can think whatever it is you want to think. You can express your opinions. And it's not like this huge life or death struggle situation where you have to do the thing the right way, or otherwise you are a wrong, bad, awful person. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're trying to, like, reach out to the politically homeless. It's like, I know a lot of people have certain preconceptions about libertarians, and some of them are true and some of them are blatantly false, and some of them I just look at them like, where the fuck did you get that idea? But if we can, like, try not to be complete assholes for like 15 minutes, we might actually be able to grab some of these people. And like I said, it's the closer we get to November of 2020, the more of these people are going to exist. Because this ratcheting up of just the partisan divide and the going to extremes and just the pure insanity of what's going on now is just going to drive more and more people away from the two major parties. And some of them may still want to have party affiliation, or they may just be looking for a place to call home. And I think that maybe we can be it. Like, maybe we can be the new home. Anyway, back to the piece. Both parties demand totalitarian-like devotion to their ideology, and if you're indifferent, apathetic, or nuanced in your approach to politics, you'll end up in the wasteland of the center, tribeless, unprotected, and increasingly insulated. But you aren't alone. My inboxes have become something of a confession booth for people who have issues with their own side, or sympathy for their political opponents. People I speak to at length in person have all manners of opinions and thoughts that they not only didn't feel comfortable admitting publicly, but for which they go out of their way to craft an online image that portrays the opposite. Bridget touches on something here that I have mentioned before, and something that I do genuinely think about, and that is the idea of people having online personas. And let's face it, on social media, outrageousness is rewarded. Extremeness is rewarded. Like, being the biggest asshole is rewarded. So people go to these insane extremes and say all manner of crazy, bizarre shit because they know that's what's going to get them the likes and the retweets, be they approving or disapproving. So it creates this environment where people just get more and more and more extreme. And there comes a point where you have to ask yourself, like, is this actually what this person believes, or is this like their grift? Like, is this their way of getting attention, or do they truly believe these things? And for a lot of people, especially a lot of very popular people, because again, this shit gets you popular, being just a normal, level-headed person does not get you as many followers as being an absolute dipshit on either side of the spectrum. It's hard to tell, like, is this what this person is genuinely like, or are you just being this way to be this way on social media? And whichever one it happens to be, it's still, the end result is this ratcheting up of extremeness on social media, and there's people that buy into it. Like, whether the person who posts the thing genuinely believes in the thing they post, the people that like it and approve of it do. So at the end of the day, it would be interesting to know, just to know, because obviously if somebody is just playing a part online, like, I think that's something that people should know. But it's still, you're doing it because there are people that agree with it. And that is slightly frightening, especially when you start looking at the way people are starting to act in real life based on this online insanity. So that is something to think about, and how we combat that is just basically trying to not be that way. Like, just being normal people, like, not going online to saying, oh, fuck all white people, or saying incendiary things about Jews, or anything like that. Like, it's just try to be normal people. And oddly enough, like I said, we are the normal people now. We used to be the crazy people, now we're the normal people, and it's weird. It feels weird. It kind of feels weird. I kind of miss being the weird people. But hey, I will take it. I will take being the normal people, if that means that we start getting more numbers and more people start kind of looking at us. And I mean, I think that's going to be an inevitable byproduct of both parties just going to extremes, is that people are going to be looking at us as, I mean, we are the third largest party, and people might start looking at us as like a legitimate solution or a legitimate option to get away from the insanity of these other two parties now. Anyway, moving back to the piece. The trouble with living under mob law is that no one can be honest, but this siloing of the public and personal personas needs to stop. We all abandon our duty as citizens when we put party loyalty over thinking critically and speaking truthfully. We can't expect integrity from our leaders if we don't expect it of ourselves. That is so very true. And I have often, and especially talking about the grift and whether people believe or don't believe what it is they say, I've pointed out that there is good money in telling people what they want to hear. And what people want to hear is not always necessarily the truth. But I think it is more valuable and more important to actually speak the truth than it is to try to be popular or to try to make money off of whatever it is that you're doing. So normally, I mean, libertarians, we're kind of in the business of not telling people what they want to hear. We're in the business of speaking truths. So that's why we're typically not as popular as your typical right-wing or left-wing persona. But I think that that is also a saving grace in that when we speak, it's not to pander to anybody. It's to speak truths. And I think that is something that's going to start becoming more and more welcome to more and more people who are going to get increasingly tired of both sides just making shit up. Like, I see just straight up make shit up now, where I just look at it, I'm like, where, cite your sources. Like, where are you getting these numbers? Where are you getting these facts? Like, or are you just like putting shit up there because you think that like you can just get away with saying what the fuck ever? Which pretty much you can now, because nobody wants to fact check anything that matches their narrative. And that's a whole nother rant. But being the people who try to speak rationally and truthfully, I think is going to become a more and more welcome voice going forward. And so I think that that is something that we, well, at least all of us who do participate in these sorts of things, if you do participate in social media, if you do podcasts, if you do YouTube videos, whatever it is that you do to try to spread the message of liberty, just don't be an asshat. Just try to be as rational and truthful as you possibly can. And for God's sake, cite your sources, people. That's all I ask. Cite your sources and read the source material. Anyway, moving on. It is absolutely our duty as citizens to denounce demagoguery when we see it, to fight corruption, to push back against attacks on free speech, due process, and the scientific method, to combat racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, and all forms of bigotry, to continue to extend the gains made by the civil rights movement, to demand compromise and moderation. This starts with fighting our own tribal instincts and laziness and educating ourselves. Again, this goes very well with libertarian philosophy of defending these sorts of things, of pushing back against people who are posing threats to free speech, to people who are posing a threat to due process, to people who are openly racist, xenophobic, sexist, whatever ist you see and think that is incorrect. This is what we do. Like, this is part of our function in the political sphere. So in doing that, and in doing it in, again, a sane, rational, truthful way, I think that is going to do a lot to convince people to kind of come into the fold a bit more. Or at least kind of maybe give us a second look, or a third look, or a fourth look, or finally just get in the tent. Just get in the tent. We want you in here. Like, just come on in. We are fine. We are fine. Trust me, we don't bite. At least not all of us, and not on the first date. But anyway, moving back to the piece. We may not all see eye to eye on how to best make America even greater, but we need to be able to have a conversation about that, and that starts with extending good faith and grace to people with whom we disagree. it doesn't start with calling everyone who disagrees with us garbage. Democracy doesn't die in the darkness. It dies when politics becomes team sports, in full view of a bloodthirsty, cheering electorate. We will return to the Dark Ages, or will we evolve? Is that likely? I don't know. Have we evolved that much from the Roman Colosseum? Barreling into 2020, it doesn't seem like it. While both sides increasingly weaponize reason and peddle conspiracy in order to defend insanity, millions of sensible, moderate Americans grapple with the choice to join a tribe, tune out, or go insane. Opt to tune out and you're either carrying water for Nazis or a conservative. Join a tribe and then you have to completely abandon your ability to think critically. No matter what, everyone seems to be going crazy. The exhausted majority could be the key to combating polarization and saving the world. If only we weren't so afraid. Kind of the last point I want to talk about before I wrap up my general thoughts on this piece is the idea that Bridget brought up about extending good faith and grace to people with whom you disagree. Now, if we are going to start being accepting of people coming into the fold from outside, part of what we are going to have to do is forgive people their former trespasses. And there is very much this trend online of people who have changed their mind on XYZ sort of thing, and then people wanting to throw up all this other stuff that they said in the past. Okay, the past is what it is. What we need to do is try not to be like that, but to meet people where they're at right now. Like, even if somebody is a former Democrat or a former Republican, and they're interested in knowing more about libertarianism, or maybe even joining the movement, or even becoming a member of the LP, or to whatever degree they wish to participate in the liberty movement, try to be kind to these people and meet them where they're at, and not beat them over the head with where they were. Like, okay, they're clearly not there anymore. For whatever reason, they don't want to be there anymore. They want to be here. So just try to be as gentle with these people as possible and understand that this is a process. The idea of changing one's political ideology or moving from one party identification to another is a process, and it is something that takes people a long time, especially if you are somebody who has bought into the idea of the two-party system. Going to a third party is a very difficult transition, and it's a difficult leap for people to make mentally, and it's an even bigger one to do it and then be public about it. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't comfortable being outwardly political when they are associated with a third party, and everybody has their reasons for doing or not doing whatever it is they do. But again, it's just being kind to people and kind of not kind of just beating people over the head with stuff, because we tend to do that. Like, there's a lot of things to read, there's a lot of things to know, there's a lot of things to talk about, and just kind of try to take it down a notch. Like, just go slowly and kind of understand what it is that each individual person is concerned about as to why they are leaving their political party and wanting to come here. Like, what are their concerns? Like, what is it that is driving them to change parties? And then kind of try to explain where libertarianism can meet those needs and have a different philosophy or point of view from the party that they are leaving. And then maybe then start introducing more stuff, but kind of address people's concerns first and just try to be as kind and graceful about it as you possibly can. So, in conclusion, like I said at the beginning of this, it is kind of my little personal pet project to try to find all of the politically homeless people and kind of bring them into the libertarian tent, because I think a lot of people who do feel politically homeless right now do have a spot under the libertarian big tent. Like, there is this, I mean, you can, especially even if you want to, like, go read, say, the LP planks, like the party platform planks, I think most people, if they read that, would be like, okay, this all makes sense, or at least most of it makes sense to them. And so you can kind of start from there and start from like the core basic ideas and then move out from there. And like I said, on a lot of social issues, like there is a wide diversity of thought within the libertarian movement, and that's fine. Like, and we can have disagreements and discussions about that, and it's fine. And I think that increasingly, more and more people are going to end up kind of wandering around in the desert, and I think that we could be a good home for them. And so I would really like to start reaching out to these people and kind of explaining, like, it's okay. It's okay to be part of a third party. You can be part of us. You can be part of a different third party if you want to. That's your business. But if you are politically homeless and you are looking for a new home and you don't want to wander around in the wilderness and you do want to have that kind of backing of a group of people who aren't going to be completely attacking assholes. Like, I'm not saying that we don't have fights. We do. That is well known. And like I said, we've gotten pretty good at it, which is a feature now and not a bug, I think. But just try to kind of maybe take this moment, this very weird political moment that we find ourselves in, and kind of grasp it and start really pushing towards getting more people into libertarianism and kind of trying to expand our numbers. Because like I said, this is not going to get better, people. It's only going to get worse. And I keep pegging it to November 2020. No matter what happens next year, after the election, it's going to get even worse. So maybe now is the best time to start positioning ourselves as like the viable third option for these people who don't want anything to do with these insane ass two parties anymore because they've lost their damn minds. Like, I don't understand who is running these shows. Like, what? Do you not want to win? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But anyway, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and just remind everybody to try to be nice and kind to people, especially people who may be trying to stick their toe into the libertarian waters, and to try to be gentle and kind to them and kind of bring them in gently. Don't shove them into the deep end. Just kind of like help them through the kiddie pool, and then eventually they'll get into the grown people pool, and then eventually they'll get into the deep end, the same way all of us did. And the same way that all of us had that somebody who kind of resonated with them and brought them into the movement. Maybe you can be that person for somebody else who is looking for some place to belong politically. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. As usual, if you did make it this far, thank you for listening. And if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and Libertarian Institute. Take care, and until next time.